Well, welcome everybody. I'm super excited to share some great news with you. I'm here with my dear friend, Dr. Joan Rosenburg, and she has an awesome book coming out that I was so excited about that I just had to talk to her about it and share it with you immediately, because what I'm hoping will happen is that you're going to be as inspired as I was just at the thought of this book, that you're going to know that you have to get it immediately. And we're going to invite you to an opportunity to actually have a live Q&A with Joan during our Global Stress Summit, which is going to happen in April. So in a way, this is kind of like a sneak invitation, custom invitation to our Stress Mastery community to say, go get this, read this, and then let's have a dialogue around it so we can really figure out how to apply this amazing work to our lives as ambassadors and stress masters ourselves in progress, of course, and also how we can use the teaching tools with our clients, because this book is packed, Joan, with amazing teaching tools. Like, I was taking so many notes, and I know that those people who get the book are going to have access to a bunch of stuff on your website as well. So super excited about that. So let's just start with this. Many of you know that our stress mastery efforts right now are really focused around our Stress 2020 initiative, which is trying to shift people away from stress management and into stress mastery. And the whole foundation of that is that stress is energy and information we can use to fuel positive change once we know how. And as soon as Joan and I started talking about her work and my work, I could so clearly see how aligned we are in this. And this particular book, although I think the title, it's a super catchy title, and I think people's tendency is going to be like, come on, really? It is 90 Seconds to a Life You Love. And if you're anything like me and you have a little snip of negativity bias, your brain's going, come on, 90 seconds. But what's so powerful about this is she has a really practical Rosenburg reset process and practice. And if you apply it, you can apply it to a lot of situations. And so it's not that in 90 seconds, everything changes. It's in 90 seconds, you learn a new tool and skill set that you can apply really to any situation. And ultimately, I'm not going to steal your thunder here because I could go on and on about this. Ultimately, it has to do with choosing a different path and not avoiding, but shifting into awareness. So with that, Joan, thank you so much for being with me and sharing a little bit about this to get people excited so that they can join in on the next step, the next phase of this, which will be a more detailed conversation. Love the book.
Thank you. So that means so much to me. It's like, people who I respect and respect their work. It's like, it's a treat for me to hear that you get it, and not just that you get it, but that you love it. And we can see I saw the alignment right away.
Absolutely.
So I'm honored.
Yeah.
So
and this isn't, it's not like another self-help. I think sometimes, again, we get these cool, catchy titles and it's like, oh, I don't know about that. This is based on decades of your personal and professional experience.
Right.
And working with therapists and like really understanding that people get stuck in their suffering because of this path. So can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, absolutely. So that, I think the key here is also not just to give the title though, and then I can take us into that. So the title is 90 Seconds to a Life You Love. And really that's about the method. The book is really about the subtitle. And the subtitle is How to Master Your Difficult Feelings to Cultivate Lasting Confidence, Resilience, and Authenticity. So the bottom line is to think of the book as learning how to turn unpleasant feelings into confidence, or turning them into resilience, or turning them into living a more authentic life. And the two pathways, and this actually dates back probably 25 years at least. And I was a staff psychologist at UCLA at that point. And I remember sitting in my office and drawing a diagram. Now, I can't remember exactly if I sat there and thought about it or what, but something came through and I drew this diagram. And I ended up using that diagram, which I'll talk about momentarily, as my template for working with clients from that point forward. And it's like, it always worked. And it never not worked. And it was like, how could that be? And then about 6 years later or 8 years later, I started to learn some of the neuroscience that was actually just coming out. And what ended up happening is that it was the neuroscience that actually explained why my diagram worked. Mm-hmm. So there were two, as you said, there were two pathways. One was a pathway of avoidance, and the other was a pathway of awareness. And so what I, again, if it's helpful, Heidi, I'm happy to kind of walk us through the diagram. Because what people ultimately get in the book is the diagram, right, but not through the diagram. It's through all the topics that relate to the diagram. So super briefly, and I've got to do this in the direction I want to do it, right? If you think about the left side of the diagram, it's the side of avoidance. Mm. And it's what I call trying not to know what you know.
Wow. Yeah. I want that to like settle and resonate for everyone for a second, because that's really,
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's trying not to know what you know. And if you stay in that not knowing, you not know through distraction. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping, social media, having feelings about having feelings, chaos, talking about other people, mm-hmm, gossip. I mean, my chapter 4 in the book is entirely distractions. Yeah. So, and if we get at the stress mastery element of it, then it's like you can see how you're not right? You cannot mastering that stress. Right. So the notion is so that we try not to know what we know through distraction or disconnection. If that happens over a long period of time, then we move towards anxiety, feeling less control, no control, or out of control, or increased vulnerability, or bodily symptoms. Burnout might fit into that, right? And if we keep going then down that pathway of avoidance, then I think, again, think of this as over time, and in many cases over long periods of time, then what you move to what I call kind of a split sense of self, mm-hmm, where you have awareness of what you should be experiencing, but you don't really experience it. Mm-hmm. So it's like you might know that you should feel sad in a situation, or you sort of have awareness of it, but you can't actually feel it in your body. And then what I think happens there is that people start to describe feeling depressed or dead inside or kind of empty, or a lot of those kind of words. And to me, that's kind of the indication of that split between the knowing self and the experiencing self.
And so with that, I just want to mention one quick thing as it relates to stress mastery too, is that I think stress has become that for a lot of people. And you talk in the book about, in your clinical experiences, realizing that when people would say a word, it was often very vague. It didn't really mean
right.
it.
Right.
And so as you would dial into it and really label the emotion or what's really going on,
right,
that's where there was something to work with. And I think that's kind of what happened to us with stress, is it's become a catch-all for everything. So everyone's saying, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed. But that could mean a million things to a million people.
Exactly.
Anything to work with. But the emotion under it, if we can get to that, there's a lesson in that, right?
Totally, 100%. So yes. So if I may, and then I'll finish that and then come back to your point. Then the bottom line is that leads eventually to what I call soulful depression.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of my notes. I thought that was an amazing term, and it really resonated with me. Yeah. So
it's not really that we're depressed. It's that we don't have a sense of aliveness, and we don't have a sense of aliveness because we don't have access to the emotion, and so to your point, using the word stress is too vague a word. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know what someone means when they say they're stressed.
Right.
What does that really mean? Oh, it means I'm angry and I'm not dealing with my anger. Oh, it means I'm sad and I'm not dealing with what's involved with my being sad. Or I'm embarrassed about something and I'm not dealing. That's why I'm stressed.
Right. And you do in the book talk a lot about, which I love, of course, the neuroscience and the neurochemistry and things you've picked up along the way that kind of explain why this is happening.
Right.
And I think that's, it's helpful for people to get that this is not just your mind going in these different directions, but it's really your entire system. And we can be addicted to those patterns of things that take down the avoidance trap.
Yeah. So that's kind of the path of avoidance. Mm. And then the path of being awake and aware and alive, and really the awareness is probably the key piece here. It's really super simple. It's knowing what you know. So when an event or situation occurs, you know what you know, as opposed to trying not to know what you know. So now you knowing what you know, you're into awareness, and then it's speaking what you know, and then it's being what you know. So there's congruence.
Yeah.
And then you get down to sharing what you know, which is contribution. It's connection and contribution. But that's the path of confidence. It's the path of authenticity, and it's the path of resilience. So you have to be in the know of the fullness of your experience, including the feelings, in order to do all that.
That's beautiful. I know that a lot of people too in our community have watched your TED Talk. So
cool.
I love that
As
well, because I think that's where it really started to resonate with people, and some comments that you made about riding the waves of our feelings and emotions. And so before we wrap up, because we want to keep this kind of short, have people go read it, bring your questions back to us so that we can really have a dialogue around that, which will
Absolutely.
be fun. But before we do that, tell us where the 90 seconds comes in and what that means.
Sure. So I wrestled with this idea of what makes it so difficult for people to tolerate unpleasant feelings. I wrestled with that question for a long time. Again, it wasn't until neuroscience came out that I started to put the pieces together. One of the first pieces is that when a feeling fires off in the brain, what ends up happening is that there's kind of a biochemical rush into the bloodstream.
Right.
And that biochemical rush actually activates bodily sensations. Mm-hmm. Those bodily sensations are what we come to describe as feelings. So it's the butterflies in the stomach. It's the flushing in my face if I'm embarrassed. It's the heavy heart, or that quality at my heart when I'm sad, right? So how do we know that we're those things? Generally speaking, we know them because we feel them in our body first. Mm-hmm. And then that rush of biochemicals dissipates out of the bloodstream in roughly 90 seconds. This was not my observation. I'm borrowing it. It was an observation made by Jill Bolte Taylor, Dr. Taylor, who wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight.
One of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was like, that was one of those mystery pieces, like the body information that came out of interpersonal neurobiology and Dan Siegel and Alan Shore and a whole bunch of other folks, having the understanding about the body piece. What I realized is it's not that we don't want to feel the fullness of our feelings, including the unpleasant ones. It's that we don't want to feel the bodily sensation that helps us know what we're feeling emotionally. So it's like, once I got that, it was like, well, then how do I help people stay with it? Mm-hmm. Well, the first was understanding they could just ride that biochemical wave in their body. So just ride the wave, just like you're on surfing out in the ocean or whatever, or in a canoe, or depending on where you live. It's just whatever that body of water is, surf it.
Yeah.
Right. Just ride the wave of it. And then the second part was, it doesn't last that long. Mm. So any given wave, any given reaction then lasts roughly up to 90 seconds. Truth be told, it doesn't even last 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. But is it one wave? No. It could be many waves. And if you keep on rethinking the same memory, then you're going to keep on refiring those waves. Right. Which means you have to not only deal with the feeling part of it, you have to deal with the thinking that you're engaged in. Right. Which is a very important piece. So I'm not dismissing what we have to do to think in a different direction or think better too. So, but that's the 90 seconds. That's the method. So the whole method is one choice, 8 feelings, 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. And the one choice is to stay aware as opposed to avoid. The second is to deal with 8 feelings, which I can speak to if you want me to right now. Or
let's let people discover it in the book.
All right.
Awesome. Get the book, because we can tell them. I have pages of notes. We can tell them, but.
Okay. I'm holding up. Okay. 8 feelings. Dealing with 8 unpleasant feelings. And what I want people to be aware of is I'm not talking about bad feelings. Right. Or negative feelings. Right. They're unpleasant or uncomfortable. They're not bad. They're not negative. So unpleasant. So dealing with 8 unpleasant feelings, and then the last part is being able to ride those 1 or more 90-second waves of 1 or more of 8 unpleasant feelings. That's the method. But the key then is how you turn that into confidence and resilience and living an authentic life.
And so much of that is practicing the method and
Absolutely.
doing it
Over and over and over.
We've got this skill set, we've got this tool that becomes a skill set when you use it with time. And obviously being part of community is super helpful. So
Absolutely.
we can be accountable to doing the work, and we can help those we work with be accountable. And so we love that. We love frameworks and models and skills. And by the way, for those of you who maybe are like me going, oh my gosh, I have to have those 8 feelings right now, you can go watch Joan's TED Talk, and we'll put a link to that below this so you can explore that a little bit further. But I do really want to encourage everybody to get the book. It is so powerful. We're going to have all of our stress mastery professionals actually read and start utilizing these tools. As someone who's done a lot of training in neuroscience as well as psychology and physiology, it just really wraps up a lot of these components. And I think the simplicity of the method is beautiful, but then you'll notice that the method, the reset, can be used in all these different cases. So it's simple, but then it's something that can be modified slightly for different conditions. And I found that really helpful too, like anxiety or like doubt, self-doubt, and those types of things. So you do bring a lot more complex ideas into it, but keeping it simple so that we can actually practice it, which is so important. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. It all comes down to riding the wave and writing 8 unpleasant feelings. Yeah. And truthfully, if you can keep it down to just that, you're golden for the rest of your life. It's like, it's just, and the amazing thing, if I may, bear with me on a story. I was talking to a client that I was working with earlier this week, and his comment was, because he was engaged in a lot of harsh self-criticism, which I also talk about in the book, and but I won't give it all away, but that it had to go, and the explanations in the book, and also having him work with his feelings, because he'd really kind of distanced himself from those. And he was starting to work with him, and just, we're talking about probably 3 or 4 months of work. And he said to me, he said, I don't feel better, but I feel more whole. And I responded, I said, well, right now it's not about feeling better. It's actually about getting better.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're feeling more whole is like one of the greatest signs of progress. So what I can say is, one of the benefits of actually being able to then be aware of and in touch with those unpleasant feelings is that you end up having experiences like feeling more yourself, feeling more whole. So I was really touched by his comment, but this is where the work leads.
That's great. And I think it's establishing confidence at a soul level.
Absolutely.
Which I know has been my word of the year the last 2 years, is always like confidence, faith, trust. How do I just know what I know and stop trying to not know what I know? Fought that for a very long time. So some of those are patterns, but we'll talk a little bit more about all of this in our next conversation. Tell us, we're going to go ahead and get this posted so people can pre-order the book and then get the book, and we can start having a conversation at least on Facebook here. But let us know, when is the book actually coming out?
The book comes out February 12th.
Awesome.
If people want to pre-order, they can go anywhere they want to pre-order. It's all over, pretty much anywhere. What's that?
I said it's all over.
All over. Yeah, no, they can pre-order anywhere they want. So Barnes and Noble, Indie Books, BAM, Books A Million. It's out everywhere. I think, and I think Amazon right now it's discounted 25%. If they want multiple copies, I would say 800 CEO Read.
Read, we love them.
And then if they want any bonuses that kind of go along with it, if they go to 90secondsbook.com, then they'll get along with the pre-order, after buying the book, they'll get some bonuses that get downloaded with that too.
Oh, awesome.
And there's also a Facebook group that I've just started, so people can kind of join into that too.
I think I saw an invitation to that. I will be joining immediately.
Yeah, love your life.
Wonderful.
Life you
All
love.
right, well, we'll post the links to that. And again, everybody, this is really a special opportunity, not just to get the book and hear from Joan why it's so powerful, and hopefully my saying this is really amazing too helps put the icing on the cake, because really, you know me, I have to really feel this, and I feel very strongly about this work. But also to know that we can continue this conversation. So as you get it, let us know. Send your notes. I'll make sure to tag Joan in, so we'll answer some of those questions as well.
Absolutely.
And then we'll set up a way to have another conversation as we move into Global Stress Summit and Stress Awareness Month. And
Absolutely.
That darn word, stress.
That's right. Okay, stress mastery.
That's right. There we go.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, thanks for being with us, Joan. Thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Heidi.